Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we are finally going to be talking about the collaboration album from King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard and Mile High Club called Sketches of Brunswick East. So before we get into this in earnest, we need to start off with a certain Facebook meme that I've seen spreading around. No, before you click away, there's a point to this, I swear. Basically, it was one of those twin pictures with bottom text that shows what you think you're doing versus what you're actually doing. One with a guy sensitively explaining at length something, and the other, it's a picture from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with Charlie losing his mind next to his conspiracy board from the episode Sweet D has a heart attack in season 4. Now, the tagline here was guys talking about music, and the band referenced in the speech bubble for such a sensitive explanation, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Now, one could argue that it's a meme that's targeted at how music nerds will try to explain at length music that nobody knows to the indifference of male or female company alike, which yes, of course I've been there. But to offer a counterpoint, I'm not sure there is an easy way to explain King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard to anyone without sounding somewhat insane. They're a 7-piece Australian psychedelic rock band that has put out 11 full-length records since 2012 that careen from garage punk to progressive rock and all manner of high-concept wildness. The sort of band that almost demands a sort of nerd-heavy cult following and at some point will disappear directly up their own asses if they don't just burn out. And since over the past couple days, I have marathoned through their entire discography. What do I think of them? Well, as I said in the past, I'm a sucker for great psychedelic rock, and tacking on elements of blues, country, and desert rock will only hook me in even more. And while I might hold a pretty big soft spot for the spaghetti western-inspired concept record Eyes Like the Sun, the essentials that you want to hear from this band are the heavier grooves of I'm In Your Mind Fuzz, the remarkably charming folk weirdness of Paper Mache Dream Balloon, and, of course, the pretty damn terrific and ridiculously catchy psychedelic metal powerhouse of Nonagon Infinity, which probably would have had a shot to make my year-end list last year in 2016 if I had taken the time to actually review it, and yeah, that's on me. But King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard was aiming even higher for 2017, aiming to release 5 albums this year. And look, I get nervous whenever an artist threatens to release 2 records a year. And as much as I do like this band, I was not remotely convinced they could churn out that much consistent quality that quickly that couldn't be crafted into one stellar record and be spread across 5. And here's the weird thing. Earlier this year in February, they put out Flying Microtonal Banana, and I actually really liked it. Maybe a shade away from true greatness, but the usage of microtones gave the record some really fascinating melodies. And for a band that has such a strength for hooks, as they certainly do, it opened up a wealth of potential going forward. But then Murder of the Universe happened, and it was a lot less structured or interesting, even despite some cool lyrical concepts. And when I heard that they were collaborating with a Mile High Club and was trending more towards 70s AM rock, look, that's a genre I tend to appreciate probably more than I should, but that's not really what I want to hear from King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. But you know what, who knows? It could be another Paper Mache Dream Balloon. So what did this translate to on Sketches of Brunswick East? Ugh. You know what? I wish I was reviewing one of the other 2 projects that King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard released this year. Because of their projects that I have heard, this is arguably one of their weakest. I don't think it's their worst. Ottomans probably remains their least likable, at least to me. But I gave this multiple listens, and of the band's experiments, this is not one that I can really support. And for a change of pace, it's remarkably easy to tell you exactly why. And some of you may have already guessed it. This is the record where King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard are working with Mild High Club. And Mild High Club sucks. Yeah, probably should have brought this up a lot sooner getting into this review. It probably should have seen it coming here too. But in addition to re-listening to all of King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard's massive discography, I also went back to hear the 2 albums from Mild High Club, and I'm not a fan at all for any reason. For one, there's a very distinctive difference between the microtonal tuning that King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard uses and just bad tuning and bad production. And when you back it up with underwhelming melodies, incredibly inconsistent vocals, and some of the most slapdash production that I have heard all year, and that's not even getting to the lyrics, the impression I get is someone trying for Ariel Pink's retro blend and failing miserably. So going to this, you've got a situation where a collaboration has to make up for the severe shortcomings of one of the acts, or at best elevate them to the same level, and that doesn't happen. Instead, we have King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard stooping not quite to Mild High Club's level, but a considerable downgrade when it comes to composition and tonal choice. And that's where you factor in some of the awful vocals from Mild High Club frontman Alexander Breton, who I'm not remotely convinced can sing or even carry a track with his very limited charisma. Seriously, take a song like The Spider and Me, which is trying for a certain mid-70s sunny, jaunty vibe, and yet with Breton's sloppily mixed vocals at the forefront, there's just no presence to it. And it's even worse where he tries to carry Countdown all on his own, including mixing the track, and man, you can tell it's not remotely a good cut in terms of its tonal balance and production. Now, thankfully, Stu McKenzie, the main frontman behind King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, he takes back control for the majority of the project in terms of production and the arrangements. But even then, he's catering to much slower, much more lethargic arrangements that have a lot more in common with languid, smooth jazz with the muted keys, the firmer bass lines, the touches of horns, and a gentle tapping cymbals. And yeah, for the most part, it's kind of pleasant, it's textured. There's certainly a commitment to some deeper atmosphere that I do appreciate. You kind of expect it from King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard, but it does sound pretty good. But it's also very telling that when King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard's rhythm guitarist Cook Craig comes up for the more late 60s folk-inspired vocals on Dusk to Dawn on Lygon Street with a firmer main guitar line, he's a much more interesting presence than Alexander Breton is, and it's followed by The Book, probably the closest the record actually comes to halfway decent psychedelic rock with the CD organ line and the firmer groove that's coming through more of the hook, and it's easily the longest song here, but that also highlights structural issues that have unfortunately carried over from Murder of the Universe, because over half of this record are instrumental fragments that barely build to a satisfying hook or an instrumental motif, and they rarely last longer than 2 minutes. It provides some decent atmosphere, sure, and I do dig the keening tones and blast of harmonica to add to the chaos of Journey to Shell, but then you kneecap the momentum of the record a song later on Rolling Stone with a muddier mix and terrible tonal choice. Can you tell that Alexander Breton wrote this one? And the best part of the record, it's suddenly over. Yeah, the bubbly touches of the languid funk on You Can Be Your Silhouette, they are pretty passable, I don't mind it, but the meandering sense of instability never really pays off across the majority of this album, and that is a real problem for a lot of the tracks here. They build up to something, but they don't have the same hook or presence that characterize King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard at their best. And do I even have to talk about the lyrics this time around? Normally I'm pretty forgiving of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard here. They go for some high concepts, but they aren't afraid to get a little weird. Like most psychedelic rock bands, they can tap into some fun poetry that doesn't really have to make a lot of sense, especially on the darker, more twisted side. And this might be where the juxtaposition with Mile High Club's influences fall the most flat, believe it or not, because it can feel more than a little bit obnoxious when writing about global catastrophe is paired with this glazed over 70s inspired elevator music that does not remotely match it in a lot of the tone. Granted, this record is trying to be a little more meditative, buck against those who would dictate your path so you can embrace all parts of yourself, light and dark. The one genuinely inspired metaphor comes on You Can Be Your Silhouette, a shape of yourself that is a blank canvas that has accepted the darker edge instead of hard religious proselytizing on the book. You can actually acknowledge the shades of gray in your life. But beyond that, man, this record feels lyrically underweight, even for a more meditative approach. I didn't think the short stories on Murder of the Universe worked, but it was trying harder than this. It's not so much meditative as it is underwritten and muddy and not adding up to all that much in terms of especially the hooks. But that raises a bigger question. If King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard weren't trying to put out 5 albums in a year, would this have even had a need to exist? I mean, some critics have actually praised this for mellowing the band out, and I don't know if they could have missed the point harder, because I have no idea who wants a more watered down King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. The intensity, the go for broke weird goofiness of the songwriting, that underscores some of their primary appeal, so why cut that with utterly mediocre at best 70s soft rock elements? As a collaborative experiment to fill a record slot on their schedule, I guess I see why this was made, but I also see King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard maybe stretching themselves a little bit too thin in 2017. They're probably going to cap this off with one more double album to end out the year, but even still, it's too much. They could have refined this more. It's not a good sign for them going forward. As for this, light 5 out of 10, go listen to Flying Microtonal Banana instead, and you will very quickly forget this album exists altogether. And really, be a lot better off for it. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. Yeah, I know this review came off pretty negative, but again, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, they're a better band than this album really showcases. I really wish Flying Microtonal Banana was the record requested on Patreon instead of this, because that record is a lot more interesting in terms of composition and writing. Beyond that, though, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. If you guys want to get involved in my scheduling process, so I'm not covering this 2 to 3 months late, The link to my Patreon is right over there. 3 times a week you guys get to vote on my schedule, and once a week for the higher tier contributors, you guys get to add albums, movies, or even a top 10 list to that schedule. More details right over there, but till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.